yet they're an important part of your family's day and interaction together.
Whether it is distractions at the table or making a big mess you're dealing with at home, we have some help for you today. Paige Mccullough is here from Red Door Pediatric Therapy with some tips. Good morning, Paige.
Good morning.
Well, it's certainly not always the case, but why are meal times sometimes so difficult?
Yeah, so meal times can be difficult for a variety of reasons, but I think the biggest thing for us to remember is that eating is one of the only things we do as humans that requires all 8 sensory systems to be functioning at the same time. So the common systems we're all familiar with, the vision, touch, hearing, smell, and taste, but it also includes concepts of proprioception, our vestibular system, and interoception.
When you break it down like that, it is pretty impressive to think about. So maybe cutting the kids some slack is okay. There's a lot of skills that are going to be required for them to get through mealtime. So what are some of those?
Yeah, so there's really 4 skill areas we're looking at. The first one is being able to just maintain an upright seated position. The second one is to be able to process all the different sensory input that is occurring during mealtime. We have a lot of motor skills and coordination that's necessary to be able to eat functionally. And then we look at those oral motor and swallow skills.
You know, we often place the blame on the child, but there are some things I would imagine that we as parents can do to help make that time a little bit more or less difficult, I should say. What are some things that we as adults can do?
Yeah, so the first thing that you should do with your child is just take a look at their seat. So are they able to sit in a functional position? We like to go by what we call the 90-90-90 rule. And this means that your child's hips, knees, and ankles are all at 90 degrees. Ways we can adjust their seat to get them in this functional position would be adding footrests. We can add side supports in their chair or back supports. And if you find your child is kind of slipping around on their chair, we can try adding a no skid mat underneath their bottom. When we're looking at where the table is setting, we really want the table or the tray surface to be falling between their belly button and their breast level. And then we want to make sure that they're sitting forward enough so that their knees are over the edge of their seat. Getting your child in this functional position is going to free up their fear of falling, and it's going to allow them to be able to focus just on the task of eating. And by doing this, it'll also encourage better hand to mouth coordination. So being able to get the food from their plate to their mouth successfully. And then it also gives them the biggest support for respiratory function, which we know is a critical piece of being able to eat.
Okay, it really helps you understand you can set yourself up for success by being in the right position there. You say that it's okay to have some fun at the table. You can encourage play. In what ways can we do that?
Yeah, lots of ways. Play is so important with food. You think about a toddler learning to eat, and it is an absolute disaster, right? Sometimes it's on their clothing, on all of the surface, and really we just need to remember that those skills for eating are going to come before manners. So food art is a great way to get your child intrigued in different foods and to make it less stressful, because we know if we're not focusing on eating the food, we just get to play with it and have fun. So playing different food games or finding different fun shaped food cutters. There's a ton of options out there nowadays with movie characters. So just making it fun and less stressful for your child.
You know, Paige, whether it's bedtime or whether it's setting aside time for homework and things like that, finding a routine for those things is important. And I would imagine that a routine or a system to follow at the table is as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we know kids thrive off routines. So establishing as much of a mealtime routine as you can. So even if it's just being able to eat dinner in the evening all together at the table is going to help your child know what's coming and know that it's time to eat. Eliminating those distractors at mealtime. So really trying not to bring any toys or games to the dinner table, turning off your TV, and even trying to keep their eating environment cleaner. The more visual distractors they have around them, the trickier it's going to be to focus on eating. If we limit grazing throughout the day, that will establish hunger at mealtime, and we're going to be more apt to wanting to sit at the table to eat. And then again, getting that consistent exposure to a variety of foods. So changing the texture, we can peel an apple one time, and then next time maybe we try it with the peel on.
Right, that's a great example of how you can kind of work through some of those picky eaters that maybe you have at home, just kind of adding more options as you go. They get used to all of that. You also say it's important to encourage your children to get involved in preparing the meal. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Meet your child where they're at. Maybe they're working on using their spoon, and so they get to do all of the stirring tasks during the meal you're preparing, and then, mom or dad completes the rest. But children love to be able to help out, and it makes it more fun for them when they get to see the finished product and eat the meal at the end if they were a part of the process.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking as an adult, leaving the phone away from the table, you touched on that. Leave the electronics, turn off the game. Make it mealtime with the family and instead of everything else that's going on around you. Paige, if you could tell us how we can get a hold of you at Red Door Pediatric Therapy.
Yeah, so you can find us in Bismarck, Minot, and Grand Forks, and you can reach all 3 locations at 701-222-3175.
It's a great conversation for all of us to think about how we can get more out of mealtime, but especially if you've got some young kids. So we encourage you to check out Red Door Pediatric Therapy for more questions. Paige Mccullough, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, have a good weekend. Stay with us. North Dakota Today will continue right after this.